In the book of Deuteronomy 7, God instructed Israelites to destroy everything of life on their arrival at Canaan. Well, as we may know, this was due to the evil and corrupted lifestyle of the Canaanites. But did Israelites obey God's command? As history has it, the journey was not a simple trek. The Israelites fought many battles, and their last war before entering Canaan was pivotal in shaping their destiny. Under the leadership of Moses and his apprentice Joshua, they were preparing for this decisive battle. The enemy was formidable, the stakes were high, but the Israelites were not alone. They had a divine guiding force, their God. God, in his infinite wisdom, had given Moses commandments, guiding the Israelites on how to conduct their warfare. These were not mere strategies, but divine instructions that held a promise of victory if obeyed. In the face of the enemy, the Israelites held their ground. Moses, with his staff held high, and Joshua, leading the charge, displayed an unyielding spirit. They were not just fighting for survival, but for a promise of a land flowing with milk and honey, Canaan. Their faith in God's commandments was unwavering, and their courage was unshakable. As the battle raged on, the Israelites found their strength in their faith. They fought not as individuals, but as a united force, driven by a divine purpose. Their unity was their strength, and their faith was their shield. They fought valiantly, with the conviction that their God was with them. And then the unimaginable happened. The Israelites, a nomadic tribe, defeated their formidable enemy. Their victory was not just a testament to their courage and unity, but a validation of their faith in God's commandments. This victory was not just a conquest, but a divine affirmation, an affirmation that they were indeed the chosen ones, destined to inhabit the land of Canaan. With the enemy defeated, the path to Canaan lay open for the Israelites. But this was just the beginning. Their journey was far from over, and their trials were far from done. The real test was yet to come. Would they continue to obey God's commandments in their new land? Would they uphold their faith amidst the challenges that awaited them in Canaan? Only time would tell. The Israelites had arrived in Canaan, but what did this early period look like? Let's delve into the untold tales of the Israelites in their early days in Canaan. Their arrival marked a new chapter in their history, one filled with the promise of a land flowing with milk and honey, but also fraught with challenges. The Israelites, fresh from their exodus, were primarily nomadic, their settlement patterns reflecting their pastoral lifestyle. They mostly resided in the central highlands of Canaan, an area characterized by small, unwalled villages. The simplicity of their dwellings was a stark contrast to the fortified Canaanite city-states in the lowlands. Their interactions with the native Canaanites were a complex mix of conflict and coexistence. On one hand, they were newcomers stepping into a landscape that was home to Canaanite culture for thousands of years. This led to inevitable clashes over resources, land, and differing belief systems. Yet it wasn't all warfare and discord. The Israelites also learned from the Canaanites. They adopted aspects of the local agricultural practices, supplementing their own pastoral lifestyle. This blend of cultures is evident in archaeological discoveries, suggesting a degree of assimilation and exchange. The challenges the Israelites faced were manifold. Not only did they have to navigate their relationships with the Canaanites, but they also had to contend with the harsh realities of life in a new land. From the arid climate to the rocky terrain, from internal disputes over leadership to external threats from neighboring tribes, the Israelites had to adapt and overcome. But the Israelites were tenacious, guided by their faith and the promise of a divine covenant. They persevered, turning adversities into opportunities, shaping their identity amidst the trials and tribulations of early Canaanite life. Life in Canaan was far from easy, but the Israelites were determined to make it their home. God had clear instructions for the Israelites regarding the Canaanites, but did they follow these instructions? The divine command was explicit. The Israelites, chosen by God, were instructed to obliterate the Canaanites completely. Not just the people, but their culture, their idols, their cities. Everything was to be wiped from the face of the earth. This was to ensure that the Israelites would not be influenced by Canaanite practices and beliefs, to keep them pure in their devotion to their God. But did the Israelites comply with this instruction? The historical narrative presents a mosaic of obedience and defiance. On one hand, there are instances of the Israelites strictly adhering to God's command. One of the most striking examples is the city of Jericho. The Israelite army, led by Joshua, brought the city walls down with a divine miracle, and in the aftermath nothing was spared. The city and all its inhabitants were destroyed just as God had commanded. Yet on the other hand, there are instances where the Israelites did not follow God's instructions to the letter. The city of Gibeon serves as a case in point. The Gibeonites, in fear of the Israelites, tricked them into making a peace treaty. Despite God's instructions, the Israelites did not destroy the Gibeonites. Instead, they let them live, albeit as servants. This pattern of obedience and defiance was repeated throughout the Israelites' conquest and settlement in Canaan. They destroyed some cities entirely, like Hazor and Ai, while in others, they coexisted with the Canaanites. They tore down some idols and sacred places, but at times they also adopted Canaanite practices and worshipped their gods. The Israelites' actions in Canaan were a mix of obedience and defiance, creating a complex history. Their journey was not a straight path of adherence to divine instruction, but a winding road filled with detours, deviations, and occasional compliance. A journey that reveals the complex and deeply human side of this ancient narrative. The Israelites had a profound effect on Canaan, but did they destroy its culture as per God's instructions? As we delve into the impact of the Israelites on Canaanite culture, it's clear that the relationship between the two was not just black and white. It was a complex interplay of destruction, preservation, and syncretism. First, let's talk about the instances of destruction. The book of Joshua provides accounts of the Israelites destroying Canaanite cities, such as Jericho and Ai. These acts were not just military conquests, but were also aimed at eradicating the Canaanite way of life, their religious practices and their cultural symbols as directed by their God. However, it wasn't all destruction. There were also instances of preservation. Despite God's instructions, the Israelites did not completely obliterate the Canaanites. Archaeological evidence shows that Canaanite cities continued to exist, and their cultural practices persisted. For example, the Israelites adopted the Canaanite script, which later evolved into the Hebrew script. Moreover, syncretism, the blending of different beliefs, was also evident. The Israelites, despite their monotheistic faith, incorporated elements of Canaanite mythology into their own. The Canaanite gods Baal and Asherah, for instance, are mentioned in the Old Testament, indicating a certain degree of religious syncretism. So, while there were certainly elements of destruction, there was also a significant degree of preservation and blending of cultures. It seems the Israelites, while striving to establish their own identity, could not completely extricate themselves from the influences of the Canaanite culture. This brings us to an interesting point. The impact of the Israelites on the Canaanite culture was not a simple case of one culture erasing another. Instead, it was a complex process of cultural exchange where elements were both lost and absorbed. Canaanite culture was both lost and transformed under the Israelites, a testament to the complex dynamics of cultural exchange. The story of the Israelites and the Canaanites serves as a reminder of how cultures interact, influence each other, and evolve over time. The ultimate question remains, did the Israelites obey God's instructions in Canaan? Our journey through history has taken us from the Israelites' last war before entering Canaan to their early life in this promised land. We've seen the nature of God's instructions to the Israelites and the actions they took in response. The impact of these actions on the Canaanite culture has been a significant point of our exploration. The Israelites, fresh from their last war, stepped into Canaan carrying with them the divine mandate to destroy the Canaanite culture and inhabitants. Their early life in Canaan was marked by a struggle to establish themselves, and the subsequent actions they undertook were guided by the instructions they believed to have received from God. However, as we delved deeper into the narrative, we found that the reality was nuanced. While there is evidence of conflicts and destruction, it is also evident that aspects of the Canaanite culture survived, suggesting a degree of integration rather than complete obliteration. Did the Israelites obey God's instructions in the absolute sense? The evidence suggests a more complex picture. It appears that while some instructions were followed, others were interpreted and implemented in ways that allowed for survival, adaptation, and the continuation of Canaanite culture. The impact of the Israelites' actions on the Canaanite culture was profound and far-reaching, yet it did not result in total eradication. The traces of Canaanite culture that survived suggest a story of resilience and adaptation, of cultures clashing, merging, and evolving. In drawing a conclusion, we find ourselves navigating the nebulous realm of history, where facts intertwine with interpretation, and truth is often a matter of perspective. Whether the Israelites truly obeyed God in Canaan is a question that continues to inspire debate and reflection. Perhaps the answer lies not in absolutes, but in the complex shades of history.